Good evening, everyone. As you're taking your seats, just a correction to the screen, we aren't taking 68 Asian big cats again. That was just an error in the working program, so we will go to 59 and then on to 47. I'm still looking for quorum. I'm a little way off. So if you're a party and you're in the room and your voting card is not in the console, please put your voting cards in the machine so we have an accurate count of the parties in the room. Thank you. A reminder as we get closer to quorum, not quite there, that we'll be starting with summary records 8 and 9. Records 8 and 9. We're almost there, parties. Anyone in the room without their cards in the consoles, please insert your cards. Parties, please, if you're in the room, I've seen some people arrive, please swiftly put your voting cards in the machine, please. We're still waiting on quorum. We've lost 20 minutes from the evening session, so I'm keen to start, please. Parties, please, if you're in the room, please take your seats. If you're in the room, parties, your cards, please, in the consoles. Thank you, parties. We've reached quorum. So as I indicated, I'd like to start with summary records 8 and 9. So I will take comments on summary record 8. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On page 3, regarding the item 66.1.2, the last paragraph, line 6, after sufficient period, Japan would like to insert the following one sentence. Japan expressed concern that there were few numbers of the reporting parties of a privately held stockpile of ivory due to the limited criteria and the lack of the common standard for protection of individual and private entity *s data, comma, and also expressed necessity of expanding the reporting parties, especially destination parties and parties which are historically used ivory in their market to the report, period.
Thank you, Japan. May I have that one more time, just so we capture it? Thank you.
Japan expressed concern that there are few numbers of the reporting parties of privately held stockpiles of ivory due to the limited criteria and lack of the common standard for protection of individual and private entities *s data, comma, and also expressed necessity of expanding the reporting parties, especially destination parties and parties which are historically used ivory in their market in the report, period.
Thank you, Japan. I don't see any other requests from parties. So I think we adopt CoP19 Committee 2 Record 8. With the amendment by Japan, to be clear. I will take comments on CoP19 Committee 2 Record 9. United States.
Thank you, Chair. For the agenda item 22.2.2, the renewed and updated decisions under the TOTOABA, the United States has some edits. Starting in paragraph 2, at the end of the paragraph that's existing, we'd like to insert the United States stressed the urgency of taking action and assuring the compliance with the convention, since this is a unique case, comma, one CITES Appendix 1 species, comma, TOTOABA, comma, will continue to decline while another Appendix 1 listed species, comma, vaquita, comma, faces imminent extinction, comma, because of illegal international trade. New sentence, as a way forward, comma, the United States proposes working off the Secretariat's proposed revisions to draft decisions 18.292 to 18.295 as presented in CoP19 Doc 29.2.1 and to submit the proposed edits in more detail at the appropriate time.
United States, can we have that again one more time, please?
The United States stressed the urgency of taking action and ensuring the compliance with the convention, since this is a unique case. One CITES Appendix 1 listed species, TOTOABA, will continue to decline while another Appendix 1 listed species, vaquita, faces imminent extinction because of illegal international trade. As a way forward, the United States proposed working off the Secretariat's proposed revisions to draft decision 18.292 to 18.295 as presented in COP19 Doc 29.2.1 and to submit the proposed edits in more detail at the appropriate time.
Thank you, United States. You can carry on if you have any more.
Thank you. In paragraph 9, at the end of the paragraph, that reads Vaquita Refuge and Zero Tolerance Areas, it should be area singular, no S. And then in the final paragraph, in the first sentence, it should read, the chair indicated that there was mainly support for document COP19 Doc 29.2.2, but that the United States of America was willing to find common ground by making some changes to the draft decisions. And then we'd like to insert in COP19 document 29.2.1. And then the remainder of the sentence is fine. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, United States. Mexico.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Asumo que estamos revisando el documento COM2 REC 9. Nos costó trabajo identificar los párrafos que la delegación de Estados Unidos estaba mencionando, pero quisiéramos resaltar en el punto 29.2 también sobre Totoaba, que no se mencionó que China también apoyó el grupo de trabajo propuesto por México y tampoco se menciona que México también indicó que tenía enmiendas a los borradores de decisión, por lo que sugerimos que en el párrafo que inicia con China y al final, antes de empezar con el párrafo que en inglés empieza con acknowledging, nos gustaría sugerir que se incluya la frase en inglés, China also support the proposal by Mexico to create a working group. Y la segunda sugerencia es casi al final, en el párrafo, entre el párrafo que dice Canada Recognize y donde dice Sea Shepherd Legal, incluir la siguiente oración. Mexico also indicate it had additional amendments to the draft decisions. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Mexico. We've captured those. AWI.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Towards the end of the text on 29.2.2, where it references Sea Shepherd Legal provided a technical update, I would suggest that the additional text be added to that sentence to reflect the fact that the Animal Welfare Institute, on behalf of 9 other conservation organizations expressed concern about the ongoing decline of the Vaquita porpoise and indicated its support for the decision text proposed by the United States or something to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you, AWI. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify the depiction of Canada's comments. So certainly Canada did recognize the collective conservation concern, the work done to date. We did also acknowledge that the United States of America had a suggestion, but we were encouraging members to consider the suggestion from the United States.
Thank you, Canada. Mexico.
Gracias, señora presidenta. En cuanto a la referencia a Sea Shepherd, me parece que el lenguaje es bastante general sin indicar una posición, pero después de escuchar el texto que solicita integrar el observador anterior, donde está especificando incluso preferencias y un sentido, yo recuerdo claramente que la intervención de Sea Shepherd mencionó que en su información más reciente reconocen una disminución importante en el número de embarcaciones que pasan por la zona de tolerancia cero, y eso no está reflejado. Nos gustaría entonces que también se considere este detalle. No tengo texto propuesto, pero nos gustaría que la Secretaría revise esa información para que lo refleje de manera adecuada. Una cosa es reconocer que observadores proveyeron información, pero si vamos a entrar en detalle, nos gustaría que esto refleje de manera balanceada lo que sucedió en la sesión. Y claramente, Sea Shepherd Legal indicaron esta importante disminución que nuestro país considera un avance importante. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mexico. I will ask the Secretariat to review the recording. Thank you. So with Mexico's final intervention, I'm proposing that we won't adopt this record until we've had a look at the recording as Mexico's requested. So I will just note that we've recorded all on 29.2 amendments from the United States. On paragraph 2, we have amendments from Mexico on paragraph 4. An amendment from the US to strike the S on areas at the end of paragraph 9, a comment from Canada on their comments on paragraph 10, and insertion from Mexico on paragraph 10, and on paragraph 11 from AWI, and then we've had the final amendment from the United States in the final paragraph to insert the reference to the correct document, and then Mexico's comment on the Sea Shepherd legal intervention, which we will come back to. So I'm not proposing that we adopt this at this point in time. Okay, and with that, I would like to return to our discussion on document 59, illegal trade in CITES. So I did note at the end of the last session that I had recorded the parties that had requested the floor that I had not yet taken. And so to assist the technicians, I'd like the following parties to press. Technicians have magically preserved my list. So parties, if you were in the queue before my session, you are in my queue again. So I will take Kuwait. Kuwait, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank Ethiopia for preparing this document. However, I see some out of date and inconsistent in the information provided in this document. And generally, we have a concern regarding how this information collected without any consultation with the countries involved. Being previously part of the CITES Intercession Working Group, we did conduct all the decisions and the recommendation that was mandated to the working group and present the final outcome during the last conference of the party. So this subject was closed and conclude and agreed that it will continue in the Big Cat Task Force. Furthermore, Kuwait, as one of the countries, was implicated in the cheetah trade and mentioned in the document. I assure you such trade has been disappeared for more than 6 years, as there is no demand for such trade. Furthermore, trade in wild mammals is totally banned, even if it's from legal source as a captive breeding. National legislation and enforcement are very restricted in this regard in my region as well. There is so much effort regarding the cyber crimes in Kuwait to combat the illegal trade in wildlife. As last, with regards to the document 59, we don't agree on the duplication of the work, and any recommendation should be taken in this regard to cheetah trade can be done through the CITES Big Cat Task Force in the document 67. As well, we reject all the amendment recommendation made by the US in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuwait. We have Niger, followed by Senegal. Niger.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, le Niger tient à remercier les auteurs pour avoir soumis ce document 59. Le Niger est un État de l'aire de répartition du guépard et nos populations sont dans un état très précaire. Le commerce illégal du guépard est connu pour être un problème sérieux dans notre région. Madame la Présidente, nous avons entendu parler d'une crise d'extinction mondiale. Et pour la région Afrique de l'Ouest, le guépard est emblématique et cette crise d'extinction la concerne. La perte d'un seul guépard rapproche nos populations d'une extension régionale. Nous soutenons pleinement tous les efforts visant à protéger cette belle espèce afin que les générations actuelles puissent profiter et que les générations futures ne nous reprochent pas d'être inactifs et incapables. Nous soutenons donc pleinement l'adoption de ce document. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Niger. Senegal.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Sénégal joint sa voix aux pays qui supportent la proposition au postulat que nous devons tout faire pour que la planète n'ait pas à perdre une de ses initiales en termes de biodiversité. Donc nous soutenons la proposition.
Thank you, Senegal. I have Tanzania, followed by Japan. Tanzania.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving us opportunity to contribute to this. Tanzania would like to thank Ethiopia for submitting this document and thank the Secretariat for the revisions. As Cheetah Range State, Tanzania is concerned about the illegal trade in cheetah that continues to threaten the viability of cheetah population in the Horn of Africa. If action is not taken now, there is a risk that as the population become locally extinct in the Horn of Africa, the impact of illegal trade in cheetah will intensify and expand across Eastern Africa and beyond. The analysis conducted indicated that in the last 10 years, on average of 420 individuals were traded illegally between Horn of Africa and Arabian Peninsula countries, and mostly conducted online. The CITES Secretariat has developed a number of documents and a toolkit to help range states to combat illegal trade in cheetah. However, these tools have not yet produced the intended results. This indicates that cheetah range states should focus on strengthening and enforcement of the domestic legislation. This includes review of laws, linking wildlife laws with economic and organized crime, and use intelligence-led investigation and the prosecution of traffickers. Therefore, Tanzania supports the adoption of Decision 19AA and 19BB with the amendments made by the United States of America, which reinstate the reporting mechanism. Therefore, Tanzania encourages countries to work together to combat illegal trade in cheetah. I submit.
Thank you, Tanzania. I've just noticed that the timer is not showing behind me. We will fix that shortly, but I will take Japan. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for Ethiopia for preparing this proposal. Japan supports the recommendation made by the Secretariat not to adopt draft decision 90BB. To avoid duplication and achieve greater impact, matters related to illegal trade in cheetah should be addressed as a part of work to be undertaken through the CITES Big Cats Task Force. In addition, we have concern with the information reliability. In principle, not only for this matter but also for the others, we strongly request the information to be used in our discussion should be based on facts and best available science, not assumption. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Bahrain, you have the floor, followed by Zimbabwe. Bahrain.
Thank you, Chair. Bahrain would like to thank Ethiopia for preparing this document and their commitment to biodiversity protection. Bahrain is also fully committed to this goal. However, Bahrain would like to align its view with the UAE and Kuwait to question the source of information and data collection methods used in the study. We echo the suggestion put forward by the UAE, Kuwait, and Japan to address cheetah trade through the Big Cats Task Force rather than a standalone species-specific matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Bahrain. Zimbabwe, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Zimbabwe supports the draft decision in Annex 1 of this document with amendments as proposed by USA. We emphasize the need to particularly consider measures to control illegal trade of cheetah cubs by all parties. We strongly urge the Secretariat to continue working closely with African cheetah range states when carrying studies and in capacity building issues so as to correctly identify and close existing capacity or information gaps. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. I see European Union followed by Saudi Arabia. European Union.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the European Union and its member states, we would like to thank Ethiopia for this document. Illegal trade is an urgent threat, and we therefore support the drafted decisions as amended by the Secretariat and further amended as proposed by the United States. Further, we would like to be assured that the Northwest African and Iranian subspecies are also included into all considerations about combating illegal trade to the relevant extent. Lastly, we would like to recommend creating a mechanism to inform and strengthen the work of the Big Cat Task Force. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding document 59, I would like to thank Ethiopia for preparing this document. I'm not willing to reiterate the intervention made by UAE and Kuwait, which we support, regarding the data in this document. But I would also like to point out to you that this issue has been discussed in many previous meetings, and in CoP18, it was agreed to delete the decisions 17.124 to 17.123 related to illegal trade in CITES, and it was also agreed that this issue be dealt with at the Big Cats Task Force. And the reason for this was that concerned countries has made great efforts in combating illegal trade in CITES. And since the last conference of the parties, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had made several advanced measures in combating illegal trade, including establishing a specialized department in the National Center for Wildlife to combat wildlife crimes, including wildlife crimes in the internet. This department has started its work since 2020, and we have witnessed a noticeable decrease in the violations that are displayed on the internet between the years 2020 and 2022 and 2021 and 2022. And that decrease was very effective since the beginning of this work. And we have been working to bruise criminals in this field in coordination with the Ministry of Interior and the General Prosecutions to arrest them and bring them to court of justice. Accordingly, we do not support the reopening of this topic in meantime, and we do not support this document or any suggested amendments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. I will take the United Kingdom, followed by Somalia. United Kingdom.
The UK would like to thank Ethiopia for submitting this working document. The illegal wildlife trade poses a historic and ongoing threat to cheetah populations. Without urgent and coordinated action, there is a risk that the species may disappear from the Horn of Africa within our lifetime. We acknowledge the progress made following COP18 by source, transit and destination countries. We would like to see those efforts being supported through continued political support, underpinned by strong monitoring of progress, evaluating of impact, and learning to support future interventions. Therefore, we support the amendments from the United States of America to decisions 19.AA, 19.BB, and the addition of 19.CC. We acknowledge the efforts by the Secretariat to avoid duplication by embedding work related to the illegal trade in cheetahs within the CITES Big Cats Task Force. However, while this task force is still being established, we believe it is beneficial to have a parallel reporting process to maintain momentum and collaboration. This could be reviewed and merged into the Big Cats Task Force at a future time, if considered appropriate. We hope that these changes bring together ongoing efforts by parties and non-state actors to make them greater than the sum of their parts and see significant progress on this time-dependent and important issue.
Thank you, United Kingdom. Somalia, you have the floor.
Thanks, Chair, to give me the floor. I would like to remind all
Ethiopia and Somalia have submitted this document, but I cannot understand why not mentioning the name of Somalia. Illegal trade of cheetah is in East Africa, or Somalia, looks decreasing. The law enforcement agencies worked hard to tackle and stop the illegal trade. But lack of funding is a big challenge for us as a government. The government of Somalia planned and established to train task force, including police, customs, judiciary, and wildlife officers. Creation of jobs for local communities that live with wildlife is important to conserve the species and not to be hunted and used for bushmeat or live illegal trade. Creation of anti-poaching units that safeguard the wildlife can improve the situation of the species, not to be hunted. Construction of rescue centers to rehabilitate the orphaned cheetah and cheetah cubs which are affected by the illegal trade cannot survive to be released as a wild again to the forest. Awareness campaigns to the youth, traditional leaders, civil society, through media is encouraged. Somalia just want to, again, to praise the close countries in Somalia, especially United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and Oman, who closely worked with us. And we have exchanging idea. They also collaborated with all aspects of illegal trade.
Somalia, you've reached your time.
We have
I'd
a question.
welcome you to wrap up.
There are NGOs not working what they have been mandated. For instance, making intervention to political affairs of the country. We will submit all evidence to the Secretariat. We also request fundraising donors not to pay them their tax for intervention of other countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Somalia. So I've had the same 4 remaining parties on my list for some time, so I will close my list now. It's been static for some time. So I'll take Benin, followed by Liberia, followed by Kenya, and then Jordan. So Benin, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Le Bénin voudrait donc saisir cette opportunité pour remercier l'Éthiopie pour avoir préparé ce document. Le guépard est un animal emblématique et représente d'ailleurs l'icône de notre principal parc national au pays, bien que observer le guépard aujourd'hui dans ce parc devient parfois mission impossible. Donc nous remercions l'Éthiopie pour ce document qui a été préparé et que nous soutenons. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Benin. Liberia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Liberia would like to thank Ethiopia for submitting this document. Cheetah is one of the iconic African species that is under pressure from illegal logging, trading. Therefore, I will be brief here. Liberia shares the view of the parties that have spoken before us, such as Niger, Benin, and the rest. So we supported this proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Liberia. I will take Kenya, then Jordan. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kenya commends Ethiopia for submitting this document and acknowledges that cheetahs are a key species in the African region, and all countries must work together to tackle illegal trade in live cheetahs. It is acknowledged and documented that at CoP19, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Uganda introduced the issue of illegal trade in cheetahs through Agenda CoP16, Doc 51. Madam Chair, Kenya will continue cooperating with the neighboring countries and with Interpol to ensure that enforcement functions are conducted to suppress illegal trade in live cheetahs and its cubs. Kenya therefore supports the recommendations contained in CoP19, Doc 59, and adoption of the accompanying draft decisions. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. We thank Ethiopia for preparing this document. We definitely joined all the concern to conserve cheetahs across the world. However, and since Jordan shares nearly 45% of its borders with Arab Gulf states, that's represented by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we have previously confiscated species that were in position to be smuggled there, we wanted to remark that none of them were from cheetah species, at least during the last 10 years. We would like to express our concern regarding the accuracy of the data that were represented in this report. More specifically, the 90% of the data that were advertised on social media according to the report. Illegal advertisement of wildlife trade became so popular in different areas of the world. Therefore, we believe a revision of all related regulations that regulate the whole process were to be considered before using resources such as reference. Therefore, we join Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia in their positions, and we don't support this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. I would like to open the floor for a few observers. So I will take CMS followed by IUCN. CMS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Cheetah is yet another species included in the CMS CITES joint work program. It is also included in the joint CITES CMS African Carnivores Initiative. The CMS Secretariat therefore welcomes today's discussion and wishes to highlight that the Scientific Council of CMS, at its 5th meeting, established an intersessional working group on the Asiatic cheetah with the mandate to consider options for the recovery of the Asiatic and Northeast African cheetah. There are strong thematic synergies between the CMS working group's mandate and the recommendations contained in the document before us, especially on the handling of live cheetahs confiscated en route from northeastern Africa to destination countries. Specifically, the CMS working group has been mandated to consider existing assessments of the genetic status of the Asiatic cheetah and determine whether supplementation from other cheetah populations is needed to secure its genetic viability and to explore opportunities to use available cheetahs of acceptable subspecies to establish and maintain a well-managed metapopulation for eventual reintroduction into northeastern Africa and options to provide support to the recovery of the cheetah in Western and South Asia. The CMS working group should also support the collation of a catalogue of likely candidates that could be available for a cheetah recovery program for northeastern Africa and Western and South Asia. We are pleased to highlight that with the generous funding received from the UK, the CMS Secretariat prepared a comprehensive report on the situation of cheetah in Asia, including options for recovery programs of the Asiatic and Northeast African cheetah. This report will soon be made available to the broader public. In line with the CMS CITES Joint Work Programme and the joint CITES CMS African Carnivores Initiative Programme of Work, we propose that the matter will be considered within the ACI, the African Carnivores Initiative, possibly at the upcoming range state meeting hosted by Uganda in April 2022, as well as by the CITES Big Cats Task Force following its establishment. Thank you.
Thank you, CMS. I will go to IUCN and then I will take the last two observers on my list. So after IUCN, I will have Cheetah Conservation Fund and then Amber Selly. IUCN.
Thank you, Chair. This intervention is on behalf of IUCN, WWF, Born Free, Colorado State University, and ZSL. We thank Ethiopia for submitting this important document. Evidence indicates that illegal trade in live cheetah poses an ongoing threat to the survival of cheetahs, particularly in the Horn of Africa. This issue has been repeatedly discussed at CITES. However, despite this attention, there is no evidence that trade has declined over recent years. The Horn of Africa supports a rare cheetah subspecies, Acinonyx jubatus samungi, which is now estimated to number less than 600 individuals, distributed in fragmented populations across the region. The perilous state of these populations means that action to combat illegal trade is urgently needed to prevent local extinctions of this subspecies. We therefore support the decisions in this document and the amendments provided by the US, in particular the need to maintain a reporting mechanism in the draft decisions. The Big Cat Task Force is not an appropriate forum to address illegal trade in cheetah with the urgency that is required. It will take time before it is effective, and its deliberations concern multiple species and issues, which make it unlikely that the full suite of targeted and comprehensive recommendations necessary will eventuate, at least not in the short term. Maintaining a reporting mechanism in the draft decisions would enable relevant outputs from the Big Cat Task Force to feed into the Standing Committee considerations on a way forward and vice versa. The Big Cat Task Force, however, may become an appropriate forum in the longer term. Finally, we urge countries, IGOs and NGOs to work together collaboratively to address this issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, IUCN. Cheetah Conservation Fund.
Thank you, Chair. The Cheetah Conservation Fund currently has 94 cheetahs recovered from illegal trade under our care in Hargeisa, with the last cub arriving today at the age of 2 months. As I'm sure everyone here will agree, these members of the Appendix 1 listed species should be in the wild, not in our safe house. These confiscated cheetahs are asking for your help today. These confiscated cheetahs are living evidence of the challenge posed by illegal trafficking in live cheetahs in the region. This is a challenge that is shared by all concerned, governments of countries impacted by trafficking, other CITES member states, NGO partners, and anyone concerned about the fate of the species. Cooperation begins with recognition and acceptance of the challenge, is built by cross-regional communication and information sharing, and is realized through joint action on cheetah protection and law enforcement initiatives. We therefore urge both Horn of Africa and Arabian Peninsula parties to meet and discuss a joint way forward. Beginning as soon as possible, we would suggest early 2023, and we support the rest of the US proposed revisions. We heard range countries ask for support from the Arabian Peninsula here today, and we believe that this will indeed be a positive way forward. We know that it is within the power of the governments represented here to take action, and only through addressing this as a regional challenge, where it is to everyone's interest to get to the bottom of this illegal trade and stop it, could real change happen. We heard parties say that they do not have records of cheetah cubs entering their country or confiscated. We urge these countries to nonetheless take a leadership role in the region, which is affected by this trade, to join hands and look together at available evidence, even conduct their own investigations further, and see how they can best contribute to cross-regional efforts to save the cheetah. As a last note, we also heard the wish to address this issue through the Big Cat Task Force and ACI. While we thank parties in the Secretariat for the hard work already done to establish these initiatives, we remind everyone that their launch was delayed due to COVID, and it would take yet more time for them to become fully operational. With the small numbers of cheetahs remaining in the wild, and with one cub after the other dying en route to illegal markets, we know that action needs to happen now, not tomorrow. Therefore, we propose this emergency meeting in early 2023 that could inform the Big Cat Task Force and have a joint way forward. The trade is happening. We see it every day. Parties of the Horn and the Arabian Peninsula, please join hands and help us protect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheetah Conservation Fund. Finally, Amber Selly, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of Mboseli Ecosystem Trust, I would like to thank Ethiopia delegation for presenting this proposal. And in the same breath as the Cheetah Foundation, would like to urge everybody here that for sure time is running out for the cheetah. And despite any inadequacies presented in the proposal, that one should not water down the urgency and the need for cooperating and deliberating to see how these vulnerable species will be able to be protected, because it's not only in the danger of the trade, it is a space that is also shrinking very fast. Therefore, I would like to join all those who are saying that there is need for discussing and to cooperate to ensure that we see how to save these species. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber Selly. So I will just take a moment to collect my thoughts. Thank you, everyone. So while I have heard some parties who would prefer work on illegal trade in cheetahs to be considered under the CITES Big Cats Task Force, in my view, more parties are supportive of adopting the decisions, particularly noting some level of concern that perhaps as the Big Cats Task Force is only just being initiated, that there is more of a need for urgency in addressing some of these issues. So my proposal would be that we go back to the amendments proposed to Ethiopia's draft decisions by the United States and just reflect on those. and the Secretariat has reminded me that the US had begun their intervention by reflecting on the Secretariat's amendments as outlined to Ethiopia's drafts. So the US has, and I've heard significant support for the US's strategy here. So what I'm proposing is that the committee agrees to the amended draft decision 19AA in the Secretariat's amendments with the following additional amendments from the US. So they propose on paragraph new B to strike and at the end, on paragraph new C to add at and at the end, and then they propose new paragraph little d, which goes to their suggestion around additional reporting, which would read to report to the Secretariat in advance of the 78th meeting of the Standing Committee on implementation of this decision. Then the US proposed amendment directs decision 19BB to the Secretariat. We would take the existing text as amended by the Secretariat as little paragraph A, and then the US proposed little paragraph B, which would read, report to the Standing Committee at its 78th meeting on implementation of decisions 19AA and 19BB paragraph little a. And finally, they believe that the draft decision originally directed to the Standing Committee should be retained, which is contrary to the Secretariat's suggestion, and revised as new draft decision 19CC, which would read, directed to the Standing Committee. The Standing Committee shall consider the report of the Secretariat on implementation of decisions 19AA and 19BB and any relevant outcomes from the CITES Big Cat Task Force specific to the conservation of and illegal trade in cheetahs, and develop recommendations for consideration of the Conference of the Parties at its 20th meeting. United Arab Emirates, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I would like some clarification on how did we decide to move towards adoption of the draft decisions, and how was it that we'd say that there was a general agreement in here, as I could count at least 7 countries that disagreed to this to these decisions as well. So we would recommend going to a working group. However, we do not recommend accepting the decision. And as I see it now, we are actually adding and discussing the amendments made on these decisions as if we agreed on them to begin with.
Thank you, United Arab Emirates. So it's my conclusion from listening to the discussion that while I acknowledge there was, I counted 5 specific references to preferring this work to be undertaken exclusively in the CITES Big Cats Task Force, and some other concerns that particularly went to some of the data that was used or referred to in the paper, that more parties supported the adoption of the draft decisions, and most of those parties specifically referred to the amendments that we heard in our last session from the United States, which are the ones that I have just read out. That's my assessment of the room. Okay, and noting the question from the UAE, which I hope I have addressed, that I think that the summation that I just gave of this document is the recommendation of Committee 2. Okay, I would like to move us on. We're making good progress. Thank you again, everybody. So we are moving from species-specific matters at this point in time to interpretation and implementation matters, regulation of trade. The first document for this section is CoP19 document 47, specimens produced through biotechnology. This document has been prepared by the Standing Committee and the Secretariat. And I understand that China may be introducing this document. China, if I'm correct, please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. As this is a technical and complex issue, I'm grateful if you would allow me a little bit more time with my introduction. At COP18, the Conference of the Parties adopted decisions 18.147 to 18.150 on specimens produced through biotechnology. China, as chair of the Standing Committee Working Group on this matter, informed a Standing Committee as SC74 about progress in the implementation of Decision 18.149. The Working Group reported to the Standing Committee the following conclusions. Specimens produced through biotechnology should be regulated within the framework of the Convention, more specifically through Resolution Conf 9.6, Rev. CoP16, on trade in readily recognizable parts and derivatives. And, given the complexity of biotechnology and the diverse paths of production, it was too early to introduce new definitions into the Convention or to develop a new resolution at this moment. The Working Group proposed to the Standing Committee an amendment to Resolution Conf 9.6, Rev. CoP16, that endorsed the existing criteria in paragraph 1 of this resolution. The Standing Committee at SC74 considered the report of the chair of the Working Group and agreed to submit to COP19 the amendment to Resolution Conf 9.6, Rev. CoP16, contained in Annex 1 to the present document. The committee furthermore requested the Secretary to work with the Standing Committee Chair to draft new decisions to submit to the present meeting in order to continue the work on specimens produced through biotechnology, taking into account, inter alia, the proposals and issues identified in document SC74, Doc 49. Pursuant to the committee's recommendation, the Standing Committee Chair and the Secretariat drafted the decisions contained in Annex 2 to the present document for consideration by the Conference of the Parties. In preparing the new decisions as directed by the Standing Committee, the Secretariat noted that the complexity of the issues merit focused attention and proposed to convene and organize a meeting of concerned parties and relevant organizations to facilitate the discussion and develop guidance on the implementation of the amendment to Resolution Conf 9.6, Rev. CoP16. The Conference of the Party is now invited to adopt the amendments to Resolution Conf 9.6, Rev. CoP16, contained in Annex 1 to the present document, as well as the draft decisions contained in Annex 2. The Conference of the Parties is also invited to agree to delete decisions 18.147 to 18.150, which have been implemented. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, China. So I'll open the floor for parties. Okay, I will take the European Union, then the United States, and then the United Kingdom. European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I speak on behalf of the EU and its member states. We would like to thank the Standing Committee, including its intersessional working group and the Secretariat for the preparation of this document. We support proposed recommendations, including the amendment to Resolution COP19, Ref COP16. We equally support the proposed meeting of specialists to discuss issues addressed in draft decision 19AA, as well as in the report of the working group. Before further changes to resolutions can be made, definitions and conservation issues have to be clarified. We would propose that the Standing Committee discusses the questions in the context of an intersessional working group once the input of the meeting of specialists becomes available. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, European Union. United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States supports adoption of the amendments to Resolution Conf 9.6, Rev COP16, contained in Annex 1 to document COP19, Doc 47. The United States strongly opposes CITES defining the term biotechnology, as there is already a recognized definition from Article 2 of the Convention on Biological Diversity. We note that the recommendations of the Standing Committee's working group adopted at SC 74 were clear that given the complexity of biotechnology and the diverse paths of production, it was too early to introduce new definitions under CITES or to develop a new resolution at this time. We also believe that the Animals and Plants Committees should be closely involved in these discussions during the next intersessional period. While we are open to supporting decisions to continue to develop guidance in this area, we believe the draft decisions in the document require substantial edits in order to ensure a manageable scope of work for the next intersessional period. Following are our specific amendments to the draft decisions contained in Annex 2 to the document. With regard to draft decision 19.AA, we believe that it should be directed to the Standing Committee in close collaboration with the Animals Committee and Plants Committee. So it would read, the Standing Committee in close collaboration with the Animals Committee and Plants Committee shall. And then for paragraph A, we would recommend amending the sentence that reads, the committee's discussion shall take into account the need. And our amendment to that sentence would be, the committee's discussion shall consider the need for new guidance material or updates to existing guidance material on the following issues in relation to trade in specimens produced through biotechnology. For subparagraph I, we oppose this paragraph because we do not believe that it is needed. With regard to subparagraph 2I and V, we suggest that they be merged and amended to read, whether an update is needed to the guidance on the use of the scientific exchange exemption and the simplified procedures to issue permits and certificates endorsed by the Standing Committee at SC 75 to include a section on specimens produced through biotechnology. For subparagraph 3i and 4IV, we suggest that they be merged and amended to read, whether there is a need for additional guidance on making legal acquisition findings in relation to specimens produced through biotechnology. For subparagraph 6, we suggest that it be amended to whether there is a need for guidance on the application of source codes to specimens produced through biotechnology. For subparagraph 7, we would recommend replacing the word how with whether, so that it would read, whether guidance is needed to improve permitting and enforcement of trade in specimens produced through biotechnology in order, and then continue. For subparagraph 8, replace how with whether guidance is needed on traceability issues to improve permitting and enforcement of trade in specimens produced through biotechnology in order, and then continuing. For subparagraph 9, we do not support this subparagraph as we think it is vague and otherwise captured under other issues. For subparagraph 10, we also do not support as is not needed with the amendment to the resolution that clarifies this issue. We have no edits to the remaining 2 subparagraphs under paragraph A. We also have no edits to subparagraph or paragraph B. Paragraph C, we would suggest amending it to read, make recommendations for consideration at the 20th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, including any appropriate updates to existing guidance materials or development of new guidance materials on trade in specimens produced through biotechnology. With regard to draft decision 19.BB, we believe that it should read, the Animals and Plants Committees shall inform implementation of decision 19.AA and then the rest is unchanged. We do not have any edits to suggest to draft decision 19.CC. And finally, we support deletion of decisions 18.147 to 18.150. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, United States. United Kingdom.
With new technologies regularly emerging, and CITES needs to be able to react to this in a proportionate and workable way. We support the proposed formation of a working group to discuss these issues further, and the approach proposed in the amendment to the resolution whereby specimens produced through biotechnology would be considered readily recognizable if they meet the criterion para 1 of Res 9.6. Regarding the US amendments, they seem broadly beneficial as proposed. From initial view, we might have a few minor suggestions, but given that it's quite late and there are quite a number of suggestions, would it be possible for the US amendments to be incorporated into a ComDoc for overnight consideration? Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. I think that's a good suggestion. If the US would be prepared to do that. Excellent. Thank you, US. I have one more party requesting the floor. Bolivia, you have the floor.
Presidenta, Bolivia agradece el documento que ha sido preparado por el Comité Permanente y la Secretaría. Al respecto, en el anexo 2, inciso 19AA, subíndice A, se sugiere incluir un nuevo criterio orientador de trabajo, denominado párrafo romanito 13, la cual sería, si las cuestiones de los conocimientos tradicionales asociados a recursos genéticos, así como los beneficios derivados de su utilización por parte de los pueblos indígenas y comunidades locales que pueden estar asociados a flora y fauna, deben tratarse de forma distinta. Sugerencias que están en relación a los tratados del Protocolo de Nagoya en el marco del CDB. Gracias.
Thank you, everyone. So I think we have a way forward. The US is going to produce a ComDoc, and I would really appreciate if the US and Bolivia could just consult on that last point and see if we can have that incorporated so we can see it all in one document. With that said, I have lost my quorum by one party. So if you see one party wandering around, I'd invite them back. I will just give us a few minutes to see if we can rectify the situation. I would love to continue for the next hour and a half that I begged from the Bureau this morning. I have requests for the floor, but I can't continue with the formal proceedings until I have a quorum. And with the magic of the loudspeaker, we are back in quorum. It was very swift, whoever managed to skid into the room just then. So I do have Mexico asking for the floor. Mexico, is it on this matter? Mexico, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Simplemente para, por un lado, apoyar la sugerencia de Estados Unidos de no hacer o inventar una nueva definición de espécimen producido por biotecnología o de biotecnología, pues ya existen definiciones acordadas en el marco internacional como el Convenio sobre la Diversidad Biológica. Todavía hace falta mucho por hacer. La sugerencia de enmendar la resolución 9.6 para incluir los especímenes producidos por biotecnología es un avance importante que tiene muchas implicaciones y tenemos que verlos cuidadosamente, tomando en cuenta las exenciones, especialmente la legalidad del origen de estos especímenes, y creo que este es un proceso que todavía seguirá llevando tiempo. Por lo tanto, estamos de acuerdo con los borradores de las decisiones. No pudimos tomar nota de todas las enmiendas que propuso Estados Unidos, especialmente en lo referente a la retroalimentación de los comités científicos. Pues estamos de acuerdo en que den asesoría, pero no sabemos qué tanto pueden dar información si no hay solicitudes concretas a los comités. Hay algo de trabajo rezagado con algún estudio, pero no nos quedó claro. Y también sobre la propuesta de Bolivia sobre cómo tomar en cuenta el conocimiento tradicional y las disposiciones relacionadas, es algo que necesitamos revisar con calma. Entonces nos gustaría saber con más claridad cómo podemos revisar este documento con mayor detalle para estar seguros de lo que estamos sugiriendo avanzar. Sin duda esto no quedará resuelto y es un proceso para ir incorporando este nuevo tipo de ejemplares que quizá también merezcan tener un código específico de origen. Gracias.
Thank you, Mexico. So I have just asked the United States to consult with Bolivia, because they're the two amendments we've heard, and they will submit a COM doc so that we can do, as you say, consider the amendments on the page. I think that will be helpful. They are extensive, as the UK pointed out. So I have the European Union.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to the United States for the extensive changes in comparison to the document that was adopted by the Standing Committee. It's really a lot of changes, and we are not sure where we stand on them because it was really hard to follow all the details. And I just wanted to say the European Union and its member states will need a decent amount of time to give a thorough consideration to all the issues. So please plan in some time for that after the document is available, and maybe not some hours overnight, because it's an evening session and at some stage we also need to sleep. Thank you very much.
Thank you, European Union. I also need to sleep. So, and I have some number of earlier COM documents to come back tomorrow. So I think we can safely say this will be further down the lane, although hopefully the US will be able to provide us something soon so we can publish it for a period of time. United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just wanted to make a quick point of clarification. So our edits are in fact intended to align more closely with our understanding of what was agreed at the Standing Committee. And so we are somewhat concerned that what was in the document doesn't accurately reflect what was agreed, and that there was an understanding that there would be some additional opportunity for consideration. So what we're trying to do is get back to where we landed at SC 74. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, United States. Noted. I don't have any more parties taking the floor, and I have indicated that we will reconsider the amendments that we've discussed today in a ComDoc, as the EU says, in some time. We have 2 more days of committee meetings. I do have the Centre for Biological Diversity requesting the floor, so I will take 1 or 2 observers, starting with Centre for Biological Diversity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This intervention is on behalf of Wildlife Conservation Society and the Center for Biological Diversity. We're pleased to have participated in the working group of the Standing Committee on this issue. We strongly recommend that parties adopt the proposed amendments to Resolution Conf 9.6, Rev COP16, in Annex 1 to this document. Doing so closes any loopholes which would allow any specimens produced through biotechnology and labeled as, or potentially confused with, species listed under CITES to be traded internationally without CITES oversight, and hence potentially jeopardize the conservation status of those listed wild species. We agree with the US and Mexico in opposing creation of a new definition of biotechnology. While we support some elements of Annex 2, we have serious concerns about some of the draft decisions therein and appreciate the US's efforts to improve upon them. Most notably, exemptions and simplified procedures should not be available. The risks to the same or closely related wild species in trade, as well as the potential wider environmental risks, are too high not to exercise caution and appropriate due diligence. A new source code might be needed for specimens derived from biotechnology. They should not be treated as artificially or captive bred, since the risks that they might pose to wild species are not necessarily less and might be more than removing species from the wild. However, they cannot have the source code W, since there is no removal from the wild. We look forward to joining any in-session or intersessional working group on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Centre for Biological Diversity. I was going to wrap up on the other recommendations that I've heard, but we have lost our quorum again. So I will take a few minutes. I do implore if you can possibly stay for the rest of the evening. It is only 1 hour and 17 minutes, and we're back. It's turning around very quickly. So please forgive me. It's my obligation to tell you when we don't have enough parties in the room. So just turning to the recommendations of this document, I have heard support for the amendments to Resolution Conf 9.6, Rev CoP 16. So it's my conclusion that we agree to those amendments. We will consider the draft decisions as amended in the ComDoc that I have requested, so we will not conclude on that recommendation. But I have also heard support for deleting decisions 18.147 to 18.150. So those are my conclusions, that are the recommendations of the committee on those two matters, and we will come back to the decisions. So our next document is CoP19 Doc 49 on Introduction from the Sea. This document has been prepared by the Standing Committee, so I'd invite the Chair of the Standing Committee to introduce the document. Canada, you have the floor.
So, apologies, Chair. I wasn't quite prepared. Okay, so I turn your attention then to COP19 Doc 49, which was prepared by the Standing Committee in reference to Decision 17.181, 18.157, and 18.158. So the document, sorry, Chair, I really wasn't prepared. The document provides a report of the outcomes of the 74th meeting of the Standing Committee and the report from the Secretariat on their work to monitor the discussions on a new international legally binding instrument under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And so those are found in the paragraphs 5 through 9. The Secretariat also provided reporting on trade transactions with exporter and source codes corresponding to introduction from the sea, and reported on training materials developed and sub-regional workshops held. During the meeting, the Standing Committee noted the documents and the information submitted by the Secretariat, as well as the advice provided by parties and observers, in particular in response to the 10 questions most frequently asked on CITES trade from areas beyond national jurisdiction. And the committee also invited further comments to be provided to the Secretariat. In considering all of these reports and information, the committee agreed to submit some draft decisions to the Conference of Parties, which are found in Annex 1 of the present document. And I also just draw attention that in submitting these draft decisions, the committee might wish to consider the deletion of decisions 17.181 and decisions 18.157 and 158. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair of the Standing Committee. We've lost our quorum again. Let's see how quickly we can turn it around this time. We might just do a round of everyone checking that their cards are properly inserted in their machines, a sign of a desperate chair. Israel, are you having a technical problem? Tanzania?
Thank you, Chair. Since we are not constituting the quorum, I would suggest that we postpone the session today, and then tomorrow we extend 1 more hour, at least to take pace with the remaining agenda, because we're still wasting time, and then we cannot constitute the quorum. So the time that we were supposed to have more discussions today, we do it tomorrow. We extend 1 more hour tomorrow. If the Conference of Party agrees, I submit.
Thank you, Tanzania. I was thinking that we might need to consider something similar. However, I only need 1 party, so I was giving it a few minutes to see if I could get somebody back in the room, since you are all here already. So I will just give it a few more minutes, but if we don't manage to get quorum back, I will reconsider the way to proceed this evening and tomorrow. I will beg your indulgence just for a few more minutes to see if we can proceed with our session this evening. Thank you, everyone. I know it's been a long day. I do appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. We're back in quorum, so I would like to continue. What else would you rather be doing on your Monday night than this level of excitement? 77, 78, 77, 78. So having had the document introduced by the Chair of the Standing Committee, I would like to open the floor to parties on document 49, Introduction from the Sea.
NEPA negotiation. Thank you. Chair, did you give me the floor? Thank you.
Sorry, Israel, I hadn't yet called on you, but I was just about to call on you.
No, the technicians gave me the floor before you did. Apologize.
Israel, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to react to the draft decision 19.AA, which appears on page 4 of the document, directed to the Secretariat to monitor the negotiations on the new ILBI, which is the new BBNJ agreement at the UN. As part of the negotiating team for my country on this document, we see where it's progressing, and there certainly could be a lot of interaction between the issue of introduction from the sea and the resources that will be taken from the areas beyond national jurisdiction. So we would make a small correction or a small amendment possible to the text here in 19.AA. The last part says that the Secretariat should report to the Standing Committee the results. But it's not just the results that are important for the Secretariat to do, but to actually think about how these negotiations affect CITES. So we would recommend before the words "as appropriate" to add "and make recommendations regarding interactions between CITES and this instrument." To make recommendations regarding interactions between CITES and this instrument. In other words, not just to report, but also to make actual recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Israel. Thank you, Israel. I will take the United Republic of Tanzania, followed by the European Union. Tanzania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The introduction from the sea has remained to be among the critical topics in CITES because of the complexity existing in the enforcement. Tanzania appreciates the ongoing effort in the implementation of the convention in the context of the introduction from the sea as provided in Resolution 14.6 Rev CoP19. Tanzania is of opinion that the development of the international legally binding instrument under the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction is of utmost importance. Tanzania proposed just editorial amendment to the draft decision presented in Annex 1. In the 19AA, we are proposing just to start the word "the Secretariat shall," and then from 19AA, 19BB, 19CC, the word start begins "the Secretariat shall," we strike them off, and then we have little a, little b, and little c. And then in C, we accept the amendment proposed by Israel. So instead of having, repeating "the Secretariat shall," because the decision is directed to the Secretariat. So we'll have 19AA and 19BB, which is directed to the Standing Committee. I submit.
Thank you, Tanzania. I see the European Union, followed by the United States. European Union.
Thank you, Chair. The EU and its member states would like to thank the Secretariat for the report and for the efforts to improve the implementation of CITES provisions linked to trade of marine species from areas beyond national jurisdiction. The report of the Secretariat shows the need to collect more information on this matter and also shows that provisions on introduction from the sea are not yet sufficiently implemented by parties. And we are indeed deeply concerned about the lack of implementation. We believe that for a successful implementation of CITES provisions for marine species, support to parties and effective cooperation between CITES and fisheries authorities is essential. We also believe that clear and comprehensive information on introduction from the sea can play a key role in the implementation of such provisions. We support the Standing Committee review of the list of frequently asked questions. For this process, inputs should be sought from all interested parties and stakeholders. We believe that it would be really useful to eventually insert an explanatory note based on the frequently asked questions as reviewed by the Standing Committee as an annex to the resolution CONF 14.6. In summary, Chair, the EU and its member states support the draft decisions proposed by the Standing Committee, but we would like to add the following decision directed to the Secretariat. The Secretariat shall issue a notification to collect views from parties and stakeholders on the frequently asked questions and submit them to the Standing Committee for its consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, European Union. United States.
Thank you, Chair. With new marine species added to the appendices at each meeting of the COP since COP14, applying the practical guidance provided in Res Conf 14.6, Rev COP16, is becoming increasingly important for the conservation of these species and to ensure effective implementation of the Convention. Several challenges have arisen for parties in regard to the implementation of introduction from the sea that need to be addressed. The United States supports the adoption of the draft decisions 19 Big A to 19 Big D contained in Annex 1 to the present document. And if appropriate, the United States would like to offer a minor clarifying amendment to draft 19 Big C. So I can do that right now if you'd like. Okay, insert introduced after CITES species so that it reads CITES species introduced from the sea. And the United States also agrees with the additional decision recommended by the EU. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United States. I have Peru, followed by the United Kingdom. Peru.
Gracias, señor
Señora Presidenta, el Perú apoya la propuesta de decisión presentada por el Comité Permanente. La aplicación del mecanismo de introducción procedente del mar sigue suponiendo serios desafíos para nuestro país, los cuales se van a incrementar cada vez más en un escenario en el que se sigan incluyendo a especies acuáticos objeto de pesquerías. Por lo tanto, el cuestionario desarrollado es un gran avance para impulsar la implementación de este mecanismo, el cual debe seguir perfeccionándose con base a las experiencias de los países concernidos. Además, es importante que la CITES siga muy de cerca las negociaciones del instrumento internacional jurídicamente vinculante sobre la conservación y el uso sostenible de la diversidad biológica situada fuera de la jurisdicción nacional, que culminará en el año 2023. Finalmente, queremos dejar constancia que el Perú no forma parte de la CONVEMAR y además apoyamos la sugerencia hecha por Israel.
Thank you, Peru. United Kingdom, followed by Argentina. United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. The UK would like to thank the Standing Committee for submitting this document. We are committed to supporting effective implementation of CITES obligations and therefore welcome this. We particularly welcome the decisions which facilitate the Secretariat taking a more proactive role in supporting parties to better implement introduction from the sea provisions. We would like to use this opportunity to draw parties' attention to the UK's proposal under DOC 43.2, which also seeks to improve CITES implementation through coordinated multi-party NDFs for straddling stocks caught in the high seas. With this in mind, we note that it could be useful to hold any workshop to gather input on frequently asked questions for introduction from the sea back-to-back with the NDF workshop proposed in document 43.2, given the likely overlap in participants. Although noting the intervention of the EU, this input might be gathered instead via notification rather than a workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. Argentina.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta, por darme la palabra. Para la Argentina, las propuestas contenidas en los párrafos operativos se consideran aceptables, en tanto reflejan el estado actual de las negociaciones en materia de elaboración de un instrumento internacional jurídicamente vinculante en el marco de la Convención de las Naciones Unidas sobre Derechos del Mar, sobre la conservación y el uso sostenible de la diversidad biológica marina de las zonas situadas fuera de la jurisdicción nacional, previendo que la Secretaría de CITES siga de cerca los desarrollos sobre la cuestión. La Argentina también tiene una enmienda para proponer a la decisión 19DD para el texto que está encomillado, donde dice comercio CITES de áreas más allá de la jurisdicción nacional. La Argentina considera que el texto no es del todo preciso y debería decir lo siguiente: disposiciones de las CITES para especímenes tomados de áreas que no están bajo la jurisdicción de ningún Estado. Eso con respecto a las enmiendas. Con esta enmienda los proyectos de decisión serían aceptables para la Argentina. Y a título informativo, si me permite, en el párrafo 7 de este documento hay una información que no estaría del todo actualizada, ya que hubo una quinta sesión de negociación en el proceso BBNJ que tuvo lugar del 15 al 26 de agosto del 2022 y se aguarda que próximamente se anuncien los próximos pasos para reanudar esa sesión a los efectos de adoptar el texto del tratado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Argentina. Thank you. So before I go to observers, I just wanted to, so that we're all fresh in our minds, just ask the Secretariat if they could reflect on a few of those comments. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora Presidente. Permítame primero aprovechar la oportunidad para agradecer a los colegas de Dualos, Unclos, que están siguiendo esta discusión en línea. Ellos están también muy atentos a lo que discutimos aquí en CITES sobre el mismo tema, y así como a los colegas de la FAO que han colaborado estrechamente con la Secretaría CITES para brindar apoyo a las partes que están interesadas en desarrollar sus capacidades, fortalecer sus capacidades en torno al tema de introducciones procedentes del mar. Quisiéramos acotar que los comentarios de la Secretaría ya se refieren al comentario de Argentina sobre esa información que está desactualizada en el párrafo 7. Gracias por reiterarlo. Y quisiéramos preguntarles sobre, bueno, primero antes sobre el comentario de Estados Unidos de agregar la palabra introducido en el párrafo, en la decisión 19CC, como está redactada en inglés, y perdón por cambiar al inglés, states that are most active in the trade in CITES species from the sea is trade from the sea, because if we say trade in specimens introduced from the sea, introduction from the sea is one of the possible transactions, so that excludes the exports when there is no introduction from the sea. So I don't know if that's the intention of the US, but we wanted to leave it open, not only for introduction from the sea, but also all the transactions that occurs between the areas beyond national jurisdiction and the national jurisdiction of the parties to the convention. So that's for the consideration of the U.S. And back to Spanish, a los distinguidos delegados de Argentina, no sé si es una cuestión de traducción, pero ya lo discutimos. El documento sustantivo se discutió en Lyon, en la reunión 74 del Comité Permanente, y este fue el lenguaje que adoptó el comité. No sé si decir, ustedes han sugerido decir áreas que no están bajo la jurisdicción de ningún estado. No sé si es un tema de traducción al español, porque están diciendo básicamente lo mismo. Areas beyond national jurisdiction son áreas que no están bajo la jurisdicción de ningún estado. Quisiéramos entender si hay algún problema con la expresión que se está utilizando tras la adopción en el Comité Permanente, o si ustedes quieren introducir una nueva manera de referirse al tema, lo cual podría abrir una nueva discusión sobre esto. Gracias, señora Presidente.
So I don't have any other parties requesting the floor, but I would welcome, if you would like to, either Argentina or the US in response to the Secretariat. I would like to take some observers too, but I think we can handle this briefly. United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Secretariat, for the clarification on that. In light of the Secretariat's clarification, we would like to withdraw our proposed edits to that. Thank you.
Thank you, United States. Maybe I will go to observers. So observers, you are welcome to request the floor. Sea Shepherd Legal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm delivering this statement on behalf of 12 organizations, and I will provide a full list to the Secretariat. We have some specific comments on the wording of the draft decisions and wider comments on the issue of introduction from the sea more generally. I will start with the general comments and then seek your guidance on whether or not there's time to read our proposed amendments. We appreciate the work of the Standing Committee and the Secretariat in assisting parties with fulfilling their obligations concerning IFS under the Convention.
We also recall the hard work that went into the adoption of Resolution CON 14.6, Rev COP 16, to operationalize these provisions almost 10 years ago. Unfortunately, as reported by the Secretariat at SC 70 and highlighted again by parties at SC 74, still only few parties report having regulations in place to implement IFS. In turn, this has likely links with a mismatch between the trade and products of CITES-listed sharks recorded in the CITES trade database and what would be expected against information from other sources that the Secretariat was requested to investigate through Decision 18221A, the implementation of which is currently outstanding and which we hope to see renewed at this meeting. We are, however, heartened to see that Decision 19CC as proposed would give the Secretariat a more proactive role to approach and work with key parties to advance their implementation of IFS provisions. Now, if I may, I would also like to offer some comments on wording. Okay, I see the chair nodding.
But I will take them. I will need parties to reflect upon these, but I will take them. C. Shepherd Legal.
Okay, so on the FAQs, we note that the US has at SC 74 provided helpful revisions in document SC 74 INF 28, and we hope the Standing Committee would take these into account in the intersessional revision proposed in Decision 19DD. On draft Decision 19CC, we recommend the following edits to the proposed decision. After marine species, in the second line, add particularly from areas beyond national jurisdiction, so that it reads, the Secretariat shall approach and work with the states that are most active in the trade in CITES-listed marine species, comma, and this is the new text, particularly from areas beyond national jurisdiction, and then comma continues as it stands, including flag of convenience states and territories, with a view to encouraging, and again, new text, and assisting, so that it reads with a view to encouraging and assisting them, continue with the old text, to fulfill their CITES responsibilities, and then add, and effectively implement the convention. Happy to read that again if helpful.
I have captured that. C. Shepherd Legal.
Okay, great. And then on draft decision 19DD, we do not see the need to include as appropriate in the first line, as introduction from the sea is included in the definition of trade under the CITES treaty, so it's always appropriate. And in order to streamline the workflow in this decision, we believe it would be helpful to amend the decision so that the Standing Committee, not the Secretariat, can directly make recommendations to COP20 regarding the possible amendment of the Annex to Resolution CON 14.6, Rev COP 16. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, C. Shepherd Legal. I have no other requests for the floor. We've had some suggestions from an observer, so I would like parties' reflections on those and as to whether or not they're acceptable. So I see Mexico and then Israel. Mexico.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Apoyamos las recomendaciones de C. Shepherd, especialmente la 19CC, porque da precisión sobre este comercio cuando en particular viene como resultado de la introducción procedente del mar, así como la 19DD. Gracias.
Thank you. Mexico, Israel.
Thank you, Chair. We also support the text as proposed by C. Shepherd, as also including the ones in 19.DD, where the recommendations would be provided to the Conference of the Parties and not to the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you. Israel, United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States supports the recommendations by C. Shepherd Legal. Thank you.
Thank you. So seeing no further requests for the floor, I will take a second to tidy up my notes here. Okay, I will sum up. Thank you everyone for your useful contributions. So it's my conclusion that the committee agrees to adopt the draft decisions in Annex 1 with the following amendments proposed by the parties and Sea Shepherd Legal supported by the parties. So Tanzania has proposed that rather than repeating the Secretariat shall 3 times on decision 19 AA, BB and CC, that we take a chapeau of the Secretariat shall and those 3 paragraphs become subparagraph A, subparagraph B and subparagraph C respectively. With regard to what is now subparagraph A, formerly decision 19AA, we have seen a comment from an insert from Israel to add to the end of that paragraph and make recommendations regarding interactions between CITES and this instrument. So we will accept that insertion. We will maintain former decision 19BB, now little paragraph B as written. On former decision 19CC, which is now little paragraph C, we have had several amendments, so I will read it out. So it will read, approach and work with the states that are most active in the trade in CITES marine species, particularly from areas beyond national jurisdictions, including flag of convenient states and territories, with a view to encouraging and assisting them to fulfil their CITES responsibilities and effectively implement the Convention. We had a new decision directed to the Secretariat, which I'm proposing would be new paragraph DD. This is the proposal from the European Union. So a new subparagraph directed to the Secretariat to issue a notification to collect views from parties and other relevant stakeholders on the 10 questions most frequently asked and submit them to the Standing Committee for its consideration. So that's new paragraph little d, directed to the Secretariat. And then on draft decision 19DD, which will become BB, the Standing Committee shall, and then we would strike as appropriate, review intersessionally the 10 questions most frequently asked, and we will continue along the rest of that decision. Oh, and sorry, I'm incorrect. So we will continue on. The 10 questions most frequently asked on CITES trade from areas beyond national jurisdiction, and the responses prepared by the Secretariat, and provide recommendations to, we would strike the Secretariat, and we would say COP20 regarding the possible amendment and carry on from there. So it's my conclusion based on our discussions that we agree to recommend the adoption of those amended draft decisions, and also as the chair of the Standing Committee has indicated to us that we agree to delete decision 17.181 and decisions 18.157 and 158 as they've been replaced or implemented. United States.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a clarification there for the change to CC. We heard you say national jurisdictions plural, and just to clarify, we think that should be national jurisdiction singular.
Thank you, US, for keeping me precise. You are correct, it is jurisdiction singular.
Thank you.
Okay, with 35 minutes to go, and thank you for staying with us. We have COP19 document 42, purpose codes on CITES permits and certificates. This document has been submitted by the Standing Committee. The Chair of the Standing Committee has asked Australia to introduce the document. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia is pleased to introduce this document on behalf of the Standing Committee. On behalf of the Chair of the Intersessional Working Group, I would like to thank the members of the Intersessional Standing Committee Working Group for their participation and engagement, and thank the Secretariat for their support. Following COP18, the Standing Committee was directed to re-establish a working group to focus on defining purpose of transaction codes to encourage their consistent use and to consider whether any codes should be eliminated or added. The working group was also asked to clarify the overlap between codes that describe physical locations and those that describe activities. The working group focused most of its discussion on defining codes that are presently undefined. The Standing Committee, following discussion at SC 73 and SC 74, presents new definitions for 5 purpose of transaction codes. Paragraphs 5 to 7 describe the processes for settling on those definitions, and the definitions themselves are included in the amendments to Resolution 12.3 Rev COP18 set out in Annex 1 of the present document. While the working group had also worked on definitions for 2 more codes, codes T and P, the Standing Committee did not agree to submit these new definitions for those 2 codes. The Standing Committee also agreed to present to the COP further amendments to Resolution Conf 12.3 to recommend that for transactions whose non-commercial aspects do not clearly predominate, and except where an alternative code more precisely reflects the reason for the transaction, purpose of transaction code T should be used. The COP is invited to adopt the amendments to Resolution Conf 12.3 in Annex 1. The Chair of the Intersessional Working Group, in consultation with the Secretariat and the Chair of the Standing Committee, identified 3 additional resolutions that are related to purpose of transaction matters, including some that may warrant amendment. These amendments are reasonably minor and are primarily intended to ensure consistency and provide useful cross-references. The proposed amendments are outlined in Annexes 2, 3, and 4. Finally, in Annex 5, the Standing Committee presents a revised draft decision to continue work on purpose of transaction codes. In particular, the Standing Committee is invited to continue discussions on purpose codes P and T, building on the constructive discussions on these codes over the last few years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Australia. And while you were speaking, we lost our quorum again. So I will give it a few more minutes to see if we can get it back. Okay, as much as I would love to continue discussing purpose codes this evening, I think I have given this enough efforts to maintain quorum. I will consult with the Secretariat and the interpreters as to whether or not there is half an hour sometime this week, tomorrow or the next day, that we can find to catch up. But I think I might just close the session for this evening. And so, yes, 30 minutes we need to find somewhere if we possibly can. So tomorrow morning, As I've indicated, I will start with the in-session documents 1 and 2 on the World Wildlife Trade Report and on the, what's the other one? Strategic Vision. And then we will come back to document 42 on purpose codes. I have a short statement from the Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. Just a kind reminder about the Rhino Working Group that will be meeting tomorrow morning from 8 to 9 in Caribe 5. Thank you. Please remember your card, and please remember not to take the receivers for the headset. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. I will see you tomorrow morning.